Totally. Yeah, it hits when people start looking to you for like, what do we do now? And you're like, I don't know, man.
Welcome back to Remotely Creative. I'm your host, Scotty Carlson. And in the studio today, we have a special guest, David Peacock, who grew up in Roslyn, but now resides in Kelowna. Had a stint in Vancouver.
Yep, a little bit of a global travel session at one point. That culminated in living in Vancouver for 5-6 years. Okay. And then off to Kelowna just before COVID. So been there ever since.
Yes, I've been there for, I guess, 5 or 6 years
yeah.
now.
Yeah, we just renewed our mortgage. So that was kind of the big marker of like, okay, we're here. 5 years. I guess we live here now.
Yeah. It's amazing how that time goes by so fast, too.
Yeah.
And in that time, you've had a couple of kids.
Yep, 2 kids added to the mix.
Yeah, that changes things. But you're here today for a variety of reasons. You're a buddy, but you also happen to be a filmmaker. And like a lot of us that do it remotely and on our own, you're a multi-hyphenate. So you're a director, you're a cinematographer, you're an editor, you're doing all the things whenever for everybody, which I think is kind of part of, making it in this industry. Yeah,
for sure. Yeah, I've always found like I'm somebody who I don't have a specialty. Like I think you said I'm a filmmaker. I think that's probably what I describe myself as, because it's kind of like I touch a little bit of everything. Depending on the project, I'll take on whatever role fits. And over the years, especially working in sports stuff, it kind of you wear a lot of hats because the projects don't happen if you're not wearing every hat. So yeah, it's kind of led in the professional career to being like, I can fill this role, I do a lot of editing now, so editing is probably like the primary thing I do, because it's so good to do from home. So yeah, editing, I guess. If I'm gonna pick a specialty, editing, and it's kind of trying to do a bit of directing now too. But
yeah, I feel like you nailed it. Like so much of what I do is motion design and like graphics for film, television, commercials, web, whatever, and then in between that is these other things I get to try and do, like direct things and make things. But I feel like there's definitely nice to have something that is like a consistent, ongoing, you can do it from where you are. That is like the bread and butter of, a lot of this. David also has running on 3 or 4 hours of sleep. He's got a 3-month-old. And how old's your son?
He's 3.5.
3.5. So yes, it's a time in life that, you've been prepared for in this industry. Because the other thing with this industry I find is like, you're always kind of working because you're always, looking for work. And then when you are working, it's like full on, full tilt. You're working all the time. And then you have these weird kind of like lulls where you're still working, but like it almost feels strange because you've been so busy. Mm-hmm. And so you grew up in Roslyn, mm-hmm. and like a lot of people that grow up in mountain towns, you skied, you mountain bike. And then is that what kind of led you into, because I know you also did you major in English?
Yeah, I did an English major at university, yeah.
Yeah, so that's not super typical of this industry, but is it kind of growing up doing those sports and starting to film or being with people that were filming?
Yeah, it was pretty classic story of like I was biking and like obviously I didn't have any delusions that I was going to be like a pro biker or something, but I really enjoyed it. And then had a head injury when I was in high school. And so that's when I started taking photos because I was like, I still want to be around. Like I still want to be in the scene and with my friends and doing stuff. So had to take some time off the bike and figured I could take pictures and hang around. And then it kind of snowballed from there. I was taking pictures, and then good mutual friend Andre Nutini kind of got me into shooting video stuff. So it seemed at the time, it was easier to get a day rate out of somebody for shooting video than it was to sell a photo. So it just kind of became video was the medium.
Yeah, totally. And I think lots of people that become good in video start in photography. You get the framing, you get the sense of like light and all the things first. Was your head injury biking? Is that how you?
Yeah, I was mountain biking, Dr. Claw and Castlegar.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it took me out.
That's a classic. I think it's taken a few people out. Yeah, I feel like in these towns, I don't know how people do it in other places where they don't start in sports I guess you start like shooting small funny things or
there's totally different like avenues to get into it. I mean, like the action sports route it's a classic way because making those projects, it's so like self realized, like you're just out there and you make something with whatever camera you may have, whatever like tools you have at your disposal. And because those industries have such a following, like people are so passionate about watching those videos, you can like gain a bit of a following or a bit of notoriety just from doing that, and you don't have to have any formal training or any like real expertise. And that's why when we look back at like a lot of the the styles of filmmaking that came out of like skateboarding in the 90s or like any of these different eras of filmmaking with sports, they're so specific to that sport, like whether it's the fisheye lens or the DV tape or whatever specific little technology that was like core to that community at the time, then they become they get grandfathered into like real filmmaking later because that was so cool, and so it's not a formal training route, but because people are so passionate about it, I think it kind of like it just lends itself to film and to people becoming artists over time.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I think too that it's not hard to convince your buddy that loves skiing or mountain biking to like, I'm going to film you. It's like, oh yeah, sweet. That'd be awesome if you did that. Versus, I remember when I was younger trying to convince friends to like shoot a comedy skit or something. They're like, I don't want to do that. That's goofy.
Totally.
It's like, I think it'll be sweet, but yeah, easier when someone's already doing something and wants to be pro or, just
they have vested interest.
Yeah. Which is, and then it becomes this kind of like good, does it help, you help each other, Yeah,
symbiotic.
Symbiotic, yeah, that's a good word. Yeah. So you're doing that and you're younger at this point, and then you decide to go to university.
Yeah, I knew I was going to go to university the whole time, so it was so that was something I did while I was going through uni. I was kind of taking pictures and sending them to magazines, and I was writing articles for online websites like newschoolers.com was a big kind of like jumping point for me of like working with them and being a little involved in the industry and seeing like, okay, yeah, like with skiing you can participate in this broader industry if you just kind of reach out, put yourself out there a little bit. So that was kind of like the start of being like, okay, this could be a career. And it was kind of with writing and with photography at first, but then, you kind of put yourself in those spots and it snowballs.
Yeah. And I feel like, obviously having an English degree and writing and then editing and photos kind of has set you up well for storytelling.
I think so. Yeah.
And I think, in that last video I saw, or last campaign that you worked on for Smithers.
Kitimat. Yeah.
Sorry, Kitimat.
Yeah.
I was thinking of Smithers last night because I was like, where's their snow right now? Where
Smithers
can I go?
Is great.
And I was like, maybe Smithers. But for Kitimat, that was tremendous and super cool. Thanks, storytelling. Not only like, because it's one thing to have a good script, but it's another thing to figure out how to visually tell that story and get like the comedy to hit when the comedy needs to hit, or like those moments to hit. So was that just a natural progression to, because it is a lot of responsibility saying, like directing, I think for a lot of people seems fun.
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden when you're doing it, it's like, well, this is a lot of responsibility all of a sudden.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it hits when people start looking to you for like, what do we do now? And you're like, I don't know, man. Like, so you really have to just be confident and like, okay, I've done the work of like, scripting this and making sure that it works on paper, and just trusting yourself. I think that's the biggest thing, is just trusting yourself. And like, if you think something's going to be good and you go out and like put your soul into it and you think you've done a good job, it's probably going to be good, at least for some people. Some people are going to appreciate it, and whether that's like everyone or not, you're not really in control of that. But yeah, put yourself out there and just trust your instincts.
Yeah, I feel like that one should win awards. I feel
thanks,
like it's
man.
So good. There's good, because it's kind of a tourism spot, but I feel like there's ones that you're like, oh yeah, this is good. Like it's a cool place and keeps you going. But for it to have like a real personality like it did and to come through, I think it's tremendous. So how much of your work these days is you trying to pitch on work versus now you've built a network where people come to you, ask you, or, you know, at least ask you to pitch on something versus you kind of trying to email a company or a brand?
It all varies. Yeah. I mean, different projects, like you've kind of got the relationships for, you know, however many kind of set clients that you work with every year. And then depending on what their fingers are in, you know, for the year, kind of depends how much stuff comes to you. Varies every year, but I'd say 50-50. Like there's about half the work, which is actually, I shouldn't say 50-50. I'd say more stuff comes without bidding, but I'd like to, now that I'd like to make a transition into doing more commercial direction and stuff. Working in that capacity, it's going to be more pitching and going to be more putting yourself out there. Anytime you make a pivot or a switch, you know, you're kind of in a position where you then have to go improve yourself, and that's kind of where I'll be in the next little bit, I think.
For sure. And I think, I don't know if you have yet, but reached out to commercial production companies that can represent you. And I feel like prime for it.
Yeah,
definitely. So, because I think that's like an interesting thing in this industry. Like when I first started, I feel like so much of my work, like some of it started to come from relationships, but 90% was pitching, you know, just like emailing or calling and trying to like convince someone to hire us to do something. And then over the years, that's kind of shifted to like maybe now 10% is that, and 90% is people come back and I have like relationships.
Yeah. Well, and I would add to that, like any pitching that I would do is very rare that a cold pitch to someone that you don't know or that ends up kind of turning over. It's way more common that, you know somebody that, you know, is kind of in a certain space, and then you can reach out to them and kind of just get the wheels turning a little bit. Even just to be involved in those pitches and those bid processes takes knowing somebody usually. It's hard to get into those things just completely like on your own.
Yeah, I feel like it's an industry where like it takes a little bit to build that relationship and get the trust, but then once you have it, it kind of is like you become a safe person, whether that's for editing or for shooting or for directing, and that they can just come to you. They know what they're going to get. They know you're easy to work with. And there's like, 10 years of kind of proving that.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, most people, whether it's a producer or a production company or something, it's all taking a risk based on somebody taking a risk on you. So, you're going to go to the person that you think is going to deliver for you with the least amount of hassle and the best product. So it's kind of, you have to prove to people over time that, yeah, I'm reliable. Like, I think being reliable is probably the biggest thing. Like, deliver things on time, don't go way over budget, be communicative, like, all those types of things that seem like no-brainers, but once you're in the industry, you see how much of it is actually, it's difficult to do for some people.
Well, yeah, I think that because there is a lot of moving parts, and lots of people are doing many things at the same time, and wires can get crossed. But for someone who wants to get into action sport filmmaking or outdoor sports or just filmmaking in general, your route, so you're young, unfortunate head injury. I feel like that is like another common thing, not the head injury, but like at some point someone who's super involved in a sport is like, for whatever reason, is like,
for sure, I'm
not going to make it as a pro,
but
I still want to be involved. So you start filming.
Yeah, the reality check.
Yeah, even though I see Nutini still doing like flips on skis and stuff, I'm like, that guy's pretty good. Because
he's a snowboarder too. He's picked up skiing late, so he's
that's
making
impressive.
up for lost time.
But in the outdoor world, that is an important thing. You need to be able to ski into places confidently, and like same thing, you need to be able to like mountain bike carrying a bunch of gear into,
for sure,
not easy places. But yeah, so I feel like there's this time where you're kind of like younger, you're like, okay, I still want to be part of this, and then you got to figure out how to make films, and now it might be, I don't want to say easier, but everybody kind of has a phone in their pocket. That's like such a cliche, like just use what you have. But there's like using a camera for the first time and figuring out like botched, light and focus. And so for you to go from like, you're in college, you're writing for new schoolers, you're doing some photos, how do you make that transition to decide to like go kind of put all the chips into filmmaking?
Well, I was lucky because Andre was working with Legs of Steel, those guys out in Europe who were making movies at the time. They were working with kind of one of the bigger endemic ski movie productions in Europe, but then ended up wanting to do their own thing. So Andre got kind of brought on as their filmmaker at the time, and then they needed somebody to do behind the scenes, and they were like, well, this is pretty like, low risk, low reward. We'll see what this guy can do. So Dre brought me out, I think, on just a shoot in BC to shoot some behind the scenes, and we got along, and then it snowballed, and we ended up doing a two-year project after a couple of years of kind of working on different films. Did a 2-year project all together as a big kind of Red Bull production, and that I think that was kind of like the real kicking off point for like working professionally. Like prior to that, I'd kind of been like trying to make it happen, and it was like not a passion thing, like it was my career at that point, but let's be honest, I wasn't making a ton of money. And then I'm still not making a ton of money, I'm not going to say that, but we're making a career of it. So that was a kicking off point of just like, you get a chance and you just do your best on the opportunity you get and see what happens.
Yeah, it's amazing how like just doing your best, like no matter what that ends up being, but just like truly doing your best, like the rewards, because people just feel it and see it, and whether like 5 years later you could have done a better job, but at that time it's kind of like the perfect amount of like what you can do. But that's a nice way to start, to like dig into like a multi-year project, because I feel like lots of the other work is like you get really busy and it's over the course of a couple weeks or a month, and then it can be crickets for whoever knows how long. But to just have like,
it's nice to have time too to work on a project, because so much of what you're working on otherwise is like quick turnaround stuff, or it's paycheck stuff that you're doing just because you need to make a little bit of money to make it work. So if you have a longer term project where you can kind of take a bigger view and say like, okay, this is like the story we want to tell, or this is the way we want to do it, and you can kind of like iterate over time and be like, we have this footage, okay, how is this working? How does this story fit in there? And just having a bit of time to work in a project is always really helpful. That was with the Kitimat thing. This year we had a bit of time, which was really nice.
Yeah, how long were you on that for?
We were up in Kitimat for 2 weeks, and we kind of had 2 components to film while we were there. But for people who work on film sets, like a week is a pretty long shoot. So being able to sit up there and have a decent, a crew that could do lighting and sound, and we were in a pretty remote place, so getting everybody up there was a bit of an effort. But yeah, just having a bit of time to be able to work on those things and get through the creative process is so helpful.
Yeah, man. And in a place like that, like you say, like just getting to it and just getting like, because you just want to spend a bit of time too, just like feeling grounded in a place before you're like, okay, let's go shoot this place.
Yeah, for sure. Luckily for that one, we'd been up there a couple times. The production company Munro Thompson had brought us up to film a more tourism related thing, and then a couple other different things over the years, so we kind of knew the area. And that was one of the reasons for that project that we went with a bit of like an honest take, because it was like, we'd been there and seen the good sides of town, the less good sides of town, and it's a lot easier to be honest about a place or be honest about a thing. I think honesty goes a long way when you're like making a film. Like it's hard to make a film dishonestly and have it turn out well. Yeah. So when you're looking at like, what can we sell about this place, or what can we make this place interesting? Okay, let's be honest about it at least.
Least we can do. So were you involved in the scripting of that too?
Yeah, that was all. I did all the scripting and everything.
Wow.
And yeah, obviously my friend Liam, who is the DOP on the project, he's super helpful for bouncing ideas off and stuff, and always had good feedback and everything. But yeah, kind of took it from the start to the finish with the edit and everything too. So
nice work. Yeah, there's something about that though, and Liam is definitely also an amazing cinematographer, which is helpful. Is that who we're talking about?
Yeah,
Liam
Milani. Liam Milani.
Yeah, beauty. But I feel like editing is one of the, like, beyond everything else, like doing a lot of editing can really help you on the production side. Like you just start knowing what you're going to use, what you're not going to use.
Oh, for sure.
What works, what doesn't work. And you're like, okay, when you're out there, you're like way more focused, even in the writing of the script. Like you just know, like when I punch in for a close up, it's going to hit versus I don't need all this extra coverage.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. You totally see what hits the cutting floor every time, and what you're like, I wish I had more of this. Yeah. Editing, I think, is the most helpful, process for like figuring out. I heard it said recently that like filmmaking is an editor's medium. Like at the end of the day, when you're putting together the film, it's in the editor's hands. So it's, what's being said, you can guide it along the way. And when you're directing, obviously that's when you make the sandwich. But presenting it on the plate is kind of the final step, and that's what the editor does. So
yeah, totally. I mean, I know it myself when I'm editing something, and like you start and you're like, oh my God, this is not good. Yeah. And it's way too long, and I don't know what the heck this is. And then you
the
just
first cut's always long.
And then you start whittling and cutting, and then eventually you have something, and then you add some music, or you start putting in like sound design or whatever it might be, narration, and all. It's like, oh man, this is starting to feel good.
Yeah, now it's filling out.
And I know like in Hollywood, so many of the films, they talk about just like those, like how many cuts are just terrible. Like they just like, this is the worst, this is the worst movie ever made. And then, as it comes down to it, it's like, you start storytelling within the edit.
Yeah.
Start changing things around. Yeah. It makes a huge difference. So I've, like my kid right now is kind of interested in filmmaking, and I'm just like, just edit. Just doesn't even matter what you're editing. Yeah. Just you like BMWs, go get some clips of BMWs, just start putting them together, feel what works, and it's like the one thing you can kind of do without anybody's you don't need extra equipment. You don't need permission. There's just
download some clips online and just like put it together, see what happens. Yeah,
exactly. So you talk about the ebb and flow of, because now you're a dad. Mm-hmm. And that, I feel like when I became a dad, it added some extra pressure to like,
totally.
Before there was a mortgage to pay, which was like, that's important. But now it's like, oh man, I got like these kids that are relying on me. I can't just be a complete goofball anymore. Totally. So now how do you go about like future you, continue editing, look for more commercial direction?
Yeah.
Because I guess, the other part is too, like, you don't want to be away from the family all the time.
No, yeah, travel's been a big thing to manage over the years, because it's like sometimes when the work's going really well, or at least it's really busy, that comes with a lot of travel, and then that, it's harder at home, right, when you're not home, especially once you have kids. So that's been something to manage, and that's one reason editing has been such a key thing for me. Is it's like, it's good work I can do. I can feel creatively fulfilled. I can do it from home, and I'm very available as well, like with my work days, being able to participate in my life outside of work. So that's a big draw for editing for me. But yeah, going forward, I think if I can continue working on projects as an editor and feel like what I really like as an editor is feeling like you have some creative say. Like, it's hard if you're just there and you're kind of just chopping up what other people want you to do. And maybe sometimes, as someone who has their hands in other parts of filmmaking, you kind of think, I don't agree with that, I don't want to do that, or I think it would be good if we do this, but you don't always have that say. But that's my favorite part of editing, is when you can kind of like take a project and shape it a little. Like in the last few years, I worked on a project with Liam Milani again and Christian Tisdale for TurboTax, and they're these kind of shorter documentaries, and we have like a really good creative process of like, they go out and they shoot the interviews, all the footage, and then we come back and we kind of craft it together. I go through the interview and like pick out the things that I think make a strong storyline, and then we hone it down together. We iterate, and we kind of make this small documentary film on a person. So it's like a really fun creative process, and it's something that like I'm not on set for any of them, but I get to feel like I'm really part of the filmmaking process. So being able to do more of those would be awesome. It's a changing landscape, so who knows what brands are going to spend money on and what projects are going to really kind of be important to people. But I feel like telling stories is always important. So
agreed. And I feel like those TurboTax pieces are way more beautiful than they have any right to be. Like,
yeah, that's all credit to those guys. Those guys are doing all the work on set.
Yeah, well, and crafting. But yeah, they're doing amazing work. They're beautiful.
Yeah.
It's also nice to kind of work on the editing side with people that well on the filmmaking side, because I feel like you do have a shorthand and you kind of know the language that they're trying to speak, and you can kind of help them with that versus complete randoms where you're like, I don't know what do they want? Just like super fast cuts. What do you guys?
I know.
Just want me to cut to the beat?
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like you've done a good job, because I've seen, follow your Instagram, and you've still been able to like take.
Must be pretty bored. That's I regrettably so bad on social media. It's something I need to get better at.
Yeah, all of us. But you've been able to like, you had a van for a while, and you would go camping with the family, and
we were sad to sell that this year.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure
the diesel van was a 1-kid thing, not a 2-kid thing, unfortunately.
Yeah, didn't you have a sweet hammock or something set up?
We had a hammock. It's a pop top, so yeah, it was a great setup, but couldn't quite fit 2 kids and a dog inside of it.
Yeah, not a small dog.
Yeah.
I feel like there's like these times in life where it's just like there's chaos, but there's somehow like this beauty and like those moments of like little escape. And you have like, even though probably owning a van and all the extra stuff that comes with it is like not easy.
Yeah.
But then you just have that like weekend away where it's like, oh, this is good times.
Yeah, totally.
So if you were to choose right now, would you rather work on like commercials, or if a film came your way, is that more?
I think it's a funny thing that's a funny thing, like directing commercials as like a goal, like creatively, you know, like it's a cool medium, I think. And it's obviously the work is good, like the pay is good. So it's, it's a good thing to aspire to do and to like, you know, have one component of your career doing that. But I definitely wouldn't want to be doing, you know, that be my sole thing of directing commercials. I feel like I want to have my roots in, you know, skiing and biking still, and do things that I'm passionate about, and hockey too. Like I've always like loved playing hockey, but I've never really found like that there's great media around. I shouldn't say that, there are good stories told, but it's not the same, you know, like there's not the same arts culture connection to the sport that those other kind of action sports have. And I've always kind of been like, oh man, there's got to be a way to kind of bring that over.
That's a really good point. You know, there is a big hit TV show right now, but
that's true. Yeah.
Which is cool. But you're right. Like even on the smaller side of it, like it's amazing because there's so much there. Like there's so much amazing stuff happening that could be documented and presented. And it is weird that there's these, like, I guess, I don't know why, but more fringe, you know, like the skiing, the mountain biking and stuff that has, and snowboarding and skateboarding, there's all this stuff. But when you get into
they're they're magnets for like creative types. And then those like the team sports are the opposite. They're kind of the polar opposite magnets. So they kind of push creatives away, I feel like, in a sense.
There's
like the structure, you know, the rules and the kind of like the bigger organizations and the red tape and all those things just kind of make it so it's
right.
You know,
access is different.
Yeah.
There's a local photographer who she just seemed to like really fall in love with shooting hockey, and she shoots the Smoke Eaters a lot and like minor hockey. And I follow her, and it's like, wow, this is really cool, like really compelling, because she's doing it all the time. Like her access is getting more. Yeah. How she's shooting it is changing and getting more creative. And then like probably the players are getting more used to her being there. And so you're getting like this snapshots of a story. But man, that would be cool to figure out a way to.
Well, I think sports photography is one thing where like over the years, there's so many amazing like photos from sports. And I think photography is one way that it's really documented in an artistic way. But like you don't see it as much in filmmaking because it's either broadcast or it's like, you know.
Yeah, scripted.
Yeah, it's just different.
Yeah, man. Yeah, because I've done some work with the Canucks. You've helped do work with the Canucks, and it's like the access to players and stuff.
You get 15 minutes to go do your thing.
It's like you don't have enough time to really truly tell, you know, an honest story. But you know, especially when you get down into like junior level, like all of a sudden I feel like there would be more access. And man, just as you said that, sorry, man, it started like sparking. Yeah. I was like, oh, that would be super cool if you could figure out. Yeah. Man, the Rockets, they don't.
Yeah, we're working on it. We'll see.
That'd be sick.
Memorial Cup's in Kelowna this year. So
is it?
We'll see if we can make something happen.
Man. Yeah, it's amazing that there just isn't way more cool content around it. And there's such a big fan base, you know, like especially in Canada, like hockey is hockey.
Yeah, and people want the content too. And I feel like, you know, Amazon's done these, I don't know if we can mention brands, Amazon, but done the latest behind the NHL or whatever it is. And, you know, there's just kind of, it's a little bit too vanilla, you know, like there's not, it's just kind of like, you know, or like on the shoulder, kind of like walk around, here's my house, a little bit MTV Cribs style. Like it's not so, you're not really digging into the meat of the stories, I feel like.
Oh, that's loud.
That's okay. It's your podcast, man. You can do whatever you want.
David's trying to get back to Kelowna this morning, so I set a timer to make sure we don't go forever. But yeah, I feel like that side of it, like digging into actual stories and players and lives and team, and like it's hard when like, you get that MTV Cribs, like you have access, but you don't really have access.
Yeah, people put their walls up.
Yeah. And even like you just have a camera on you, it changes things, and like you don't want to upset people, and you know everybody there has a manager and an agent. And,
for sure.
You know, like there's a lot of layers to those players.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and well, just back to the photography aspect too. I mean, like you see, you know, these great moments in sport captured in a photo, and you know, sports photographers they're there for the moment, and that's what they're kind of like, you know, it's like they get that picture and then they can like, that can forever be their picture. But for filmmakers, it's so much more, you know, you might be there and you get the shot and then it might sit on a hard drive for, you know, if you don't find the right project or the right kind of avenue to put that out, it might not ever go anywhere.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's okay.
But yeah, if you're, you know, just finding the right project to support the right people, to be in the right places, there's a lot of moving parts, but yeah, I'd love to find a way to make hockey a little more interesting. I think that'd be cool.
Sweet. You playing any gentlemen's hockey?
Yeah, we're in a league. Yeah,
nice.
Yeah, we're 11 p.m.s usually, late nights.
Yeah, Derek Frankowski, who you know well, his brother plays down on the coast, and it seemed like just the craziest ice times.
Yeah,
you know,
you got to really love it at that point.
Yeah,
you're getting home at 2 a.m. to go to sleep, and
yeah,
kids are up at 5 a.m.
Yeah, that changes, man. We just played at like in Fruitvale at like 7 o'clock on a Saturday or whatever it was, and it's like, oh man, this is prime time. We had like 3 fans.
Yeah, that's
we
awesome.
had like a group of kids that was running through.
Kootenay Beer League's on another level for sure.
Yeah, there's anytime we get a fan that was like, oh man, okay, we got to really step it up. And I'm talking about like a fan.
Somebody's watching.
Yeah, it was probably usually a
Don't
wife
panic.
From the other team. Yeah. Oh, and I do. I'm like, oh man, I'm just giving things over. Yeah. Yeah, hockey is such a fun thing that I feel like is under documented on like any other level other than pro.
It's interesting too, like the golf and running, I feel like I've had this like renaissance of artsy and core filmmaking where people are like, especially with commercial filmmaking, are really like digging into like, you know, these edgy themes and like really, you know, hard visuals and stuff, and it's just so counterculture to the sports themselves. And it's like I feel like hockey actually has a lot of that, like has a lot of like the kind of like, I don't know, just a lot of visual interest that maybe those sports don't necessarily have. That, you know, those sports have really kind of like picked up this creative steam, and I don't know if I've seen it with hockey yet. Maybe it's because it's just the way the brands that are involved and the teams and the leagues, they know how they're going to market to their audience, and they don't really push the boundaries a little. And these other sports are starting to figure it out that you can do some different things.
Yeah, I mean, even football does a good job of like creating some really cool content, but yeah, anytime I play hockey or I'm out there, I'm like all of it, the sound, you know, the speed, how fast, like a lot of the arenas, you get cold, you get just like weird, you get like the breath of play, like all of it is just, man, it's like super cinematic.
Totally.
Even in beer league where we're not going very fast, it feels fast.
Get these cameras out there to your beer league game.
Well, I thought when I was in college, I shot a short on beer league hockey. It was pretty funny, but it was all focused kind of on the bench, guys kind of coming onto the bench and leaving the bench, and like the little conversations that happen for the like 3 minutes you're on the bench catching your breath. But we'll wrap it up here so you can take off.
Thanks, man.
I tried to find your website. Do you have a website right now?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Okay, what is your website?
davidgrahampeacock.com.
And same as your Instagram.
Yeah.
David Graham Peacock. That's where people can find you, even though you don't post enough. Yeah.
Well, we'll try to post more. Motivation.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
on the record,
check out the spots from Kitimat. Super cool.
Thank you.
Really the type of filmmaking that I would like to do more of. You know, it's this like blend of, it feels big and cinematic, but also feels like really personal and authentic. And
well, I mean, you guys are a big inspiration for some of that work, right? Like back in the day with different projects and different, I don't know, that humorous voice that I feel like you've brought to projects over the years too. So
well, thank you. I'll take all the credit I can for your success.
Put you in the footnotes.
Yeah. Because it is true, like especially in this world where things can be very, I don't want to say paint by numbers, but can focus on just like the action or the scenery or the location, to like bring out human stories or the humor, like those things I think just go such a long way. And Kitimat, nice work for doing it, because it definitely was like right away. I thought, oh, I kind of want to go. Not only do I want to go there, I feel like, again, this is a place I like. Could I go live there?
Yeah.
Which,
you could.
Yeah, I feel like I could. It's beautiful. And then I looked it up again on because I have family in Prince George, and then a grandpa who lived on Burns Lake, like a guy kind of the avenue to.
And then you looked at the map and you're like, oh, it's not actually that close to those places.
No, it's like, you gotta, which is good. You want to have some distance. But then it's like, oh yeah, this is like geographically a super cool location. So
definitely
effective commercial.
Thank you.
And good luck with everything.
Thanks, man.
Yes, pursue hockey. I'll definitely be a fan watching that.
Yeah, we'll see what we can do.
Yeah, Memorial Cup. Come on, Memorial Cup.
Let's make something happen.
You got guys right there, wicked storytellers, can film it, can edit it.
Yeah.
You should reach out to them.
Yes, it's in the works.
Okay.
Yeah.
When he reaches out, you have my
stamp of approval. Yeah. Okay.
Meaningless stamp of approval, but you have at least one fan.
I'll just preemptively tell them that. I'll be like, it'll be the opener in my email.
Yeah, exactly.
Scotty Carlson approves.
Yeah, delete.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you, man. Thanks for having me.
For anybody that wants to get into filmmaking, as in David's story, there's so many different ways to do it. And you can still go get a wicked degree in English and have that, and makes your parents happy. And
or engineering or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't do English. Get like a backup career. Nice to have a backup.
Yeah. But there is no straight line, and for everybody's different. And for all of us, it's always a work in progress, and they come and they go. And David was just starting when we were kind of like hitting our stride in our business, and to see these next generation that's kind of right behind us come up and tell rad stories and keep the torch going is super cool. So
appreciate it, man.
Thanks, buddy. And safe travels back to Colombia.
Thank you. See ya.